back to another session of Daily Current Affairs. My name is Aishwarya and I am representing Gallant IAS. So let's move on to today's topic. I have been taken SEO today. It is covered in our video session of 15th and 16th July. Please go on that. That is Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Now today's topic I have Forest Conservation Bill and debt crisis, public debt of India, and IMF report, and what is the issue, what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir. West Bengal announces Mangrove cell about manual scavenging and Indian space industry. Now let's move on to first topic. We have Forest Conservation Amendment Bill. This bill actually aims to amend our Forest Conservation Act of 1980 to ensure that any forest land diverted to non-forest purpose is duly compensated. These two are some of the features of the Forest Conservation Act of 1980. That is, if a forest land is diverted to non-forest use, it must be duly compensated. And it also extends to remit the land even beyond what is officially classified as a forest by the state and central government records. Only some of the forests in India are actually classified by the government. So certain forest or land area which is not classified, the governments will also come under the ambit of this act. Now, what are the features of this amendment bill? It increases the practice of cultivating plantations on non-forestry land. Like, there are plenty of land here which is not of non-forest area. So if you are cultivating more of plantation crops in that area, it will actually increase the tree cover. Also, it acts as a carbon sink, and India has the aim of achieving net zero carbon emission by 2070. So this will be a boost to that, our aim to achieve net zero by 2070. Also, there were some restrictions imposed in the original act, that is Forest Conservation Act of 1980, that the land that can create infrastructure in some of the areas. Now with this restriction has been removed, and we can actually create infrastructure in case of our national security, to aid our national security in certain areas. So let's consider our LOC area, line of actual control and line of control area. Within a 100-kilometer boundary, we can create infrastructures, roads, transport systems, etc. No need of permission in certain areas. Okay. Now, there are some opposition against this act and appeals. The parliament is going to create a joint parliament committee which consists of both the members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha to investigate in this bill further. Also, many objections was raised by the tribals and also independent think tank groups about this bill. So, let us see what is happening. So, in 1996, the Supreme Court gave out a verdict of the Godamanman Burman case, where certain forests, they defined the scope of forest, and if an area is not classified as forest for the central and state government, it could be extended protection to these forest area which is not classified also, even if they are not recorded as forest by the state government. Now, if this act comes, the Supreme Court order could be nullified. So, there is some problem regarding to that. Also, this act was given a new name. Like, apart from Forest Conservation Act, this act is called the Forest Conservation and Augmentation Act. In Hindi, non-Hindi version, we can say it as one Sankarshan Evam Samvardhan Adhiniyam, so that non-Hindi people and South Indian people could understand what the project or what this act is about further. And also, authorities felt that there was a fear of large parcel of forest land that could be converted into infrastructure and near the border areas, and it would actually that the forests won't be protected any longer. So these are the concerns and these are the features of the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill of 2023. Now, I have a very important topic here dealing about economy and public debt in India. It is a very important portion of our general studies tree in case of our public debt. Now, before COVID also we had debt, but during the COVID the public debt level and our fiscal deficit has increased a lot. So what is fiscal deficit? When the fiscal expenditure of the government is greater than the receipts through which the tax and indirect tax they get is greater, when the expenditure is more, is when the fiscal deficit occurs, and this also aids to our public debt. So let's see here. COVID time our debt was about 89.6%, which is almost 90%. Okay, and after COVID, post-COVID, it came down to a little bit of 85.7% due to the reforms and other government policies and initiative by the central and state. But presently, the 14th Finance Commission states to have a debt to GDP ratio about 58.2% only. Our debt to GDP ratio is 85.7%, which is very high right now. Some countries even have a debt greater than 100% considering their GDP. Compared to that, India's is only 85.7%, but in a developing country like India, this is also dangerous. Okay, so as per the 14th Finance Committee, our debt to GDP ratio should come down to about 58.2%. Now, let us see some issues which we have present. As I already told you, there is very high amount of public debt both at the central government level and state government level, which both the central and state has to come down to a minimal possible as per the recommendation of Finance Commission. Also, we know there is upcoming elections in the next year. So, the government, to get the favor of the people, they could actually again do expenditure which put more debt, increase the public debt again, and it increases the outgoing expenses from the budget. Also, there is high interest payment. For most the borrowing we are taking from outside, there is an interest payment the government has to pay. Now, presently about 5% of the GDP is spent in interest payment alone. But if you are comparing our total of health and education, this 5% of GDP in interest payment exceeds our collective allocation to the health and education sector. Also, there is crowding out of welfare schemes on which needs more expenditure like in physical infrastructure and human development and green transitioning, but there is crowding out of welfare schemes happening now. Now, very high cost of borrowing. Presently, our CRR rate is about 4.5%, our SLR rate is 18%, and our public sector lending is about 40%. Now, combine all this, it goes to around 60 to 70%. In some part, which the bank has to keep to themselves in public sector lending and CRR and SLR. CRR is cash reserve ratio, SLR is statutory liquid ratio. These are some of the key terms which you learn in banking and in our economy. So, you have to know that. And now, after keeping all this, the bank has only very small percentage of amount to give out as loans. Now, that increases the cost of borrowing, and this mainly affects the lending to manufacturing sector that gets squeezed. So, that is a very high cost of borrowings which we need to know. Also, the performance of some states where their debt to GSDP, the gross state domestic product is more, like in Punjab is close to about 50%, West Bengal 37.6%, Kerala about 35% and Rajasthan about 33%. These states will have a lot of problem in providing money or providing expenditure to other welfare schemes and all. Now, if there is high level of debts in India, means that there is a lot of burden upon the government. They will find it difficult to calibrate any counter-cyclical policy which is needed in the economy. Also, they might not be able to get out of any shocks, economic shocks as well. So, this puts a burden or a difficulty situation of the government. Now, let us see some way forward out of all these 7 issues I have talked to you about. Resolution, disinvestment. We know about the Air Indian disinvestment, BSNL disinvestment. If a sector or an organization is not working very well in the government, it's better to privatize it or give away to and disinvest them rather than putting money again into these sectors. Also ensure proper working of GST. We know that GST, while introducing, it was very complex and very time consuming and complex process. With GST now implemented over a lot of years now, we get at about a 1.4 lakh crore revenue to 1.5 lakh crore revenue comes from GST alone now. So, but there are still some complaints and some issues with the GST which needs to be properly resolved. Also, redistribution mechanism by cash transfer rather than subsidies to people. Budget constraints on fixed budget on some things and reducing the borrowings of the government, and also forcefully enforce the FRBM, that is Physical and Responsibility Budget Management Act, also should be correctly enforced. In the state level, they should be prevented against bringing back any old pension policies which requires a lot of budget and a lot of expenditure. So, such management should be taken from considered from the state government and the central government. Now, we have a very small topic that is also from the editorial page. Resilient budgets, lopsided growth that bypass poor nation risk affecting the global economy. So I'll tell you some of the key points which you need to understand here. IMF gives out the report of World Economic Outlook. This will be a very key question you can get in prelims. You can give what are the reports given out by IMF, and these might be one of the options. So you should know World Economic Outlook is given out by IMF. As per this report, it shows that the global economy is showing sign of growth of about 3% in 2023. There is a sign of growth in about 3%, and only 3% growth is stated here. Also, there are many of the challenging banking failures. We just heard that there was bank failures in US and Switzerland. Also, there is slowdown of economic growth in countries like United States and China. Also, with the going on of Ukraine war, there is constraints over the economy. Black Sea Grain Deal initiative, which I have told to you about my videos earlier. Because of the deals also, there won't be distribution of grains and all, which could lead to further inflation of about 15% inflation could occur in the economy. Also, there is contraction of real estate sectors, and there is a decrease in overseas exports and trade as well. These are some of the challenges that is faced currently in our economy, in the global economy. Also, there is a twin problem. Now, you see, during the COVID time, a lot of countries were facing constraints. So, with the surplus of money actually went into distribution and giving them proper remedies and methodology during the COVID time. So, after the COVID, with money given, it increased the inflation, and now the people doesn't have any money at all. So, now the problem is that there is inflation and people doesn't have any money. So, that is the twin problem. Like India thankfully didn't adopt this method. There are a lot of other countries which have adopted this method of giving surplus money, pumping into the economy, which resulted in inflation, and people doesn't have money now. So, certain economies or countries are going through this twin problem now. Also, there is an urgent need, a global debt resolution initiative to pull up these countries who are facing twin problem and these challenges, so that they doesn't go into a debt crisis. So, these are some of the main important key facts suggested by the author in this article. Now, moving on. India's rice export ban impacts Asian and African nation. Recently, on July 20th, India decided to ban the export of non-Basmati white rice. Okay, now because of this ban in export of rice, many of the people in US, that is the NRIs in USA, are actually panic stricken and going to the store to collect. Like you might have seen the video of how the people are panic stricken to get the rice from the supermarkets and all. So, the US brought out some limits on the sale of rice for Indians, and also 1 bag of rice per family is implemented in US, so that people doesn't go panic stricken in the case of rice. So, India banned the export of non-Basmati white rice. There are 3 types of rice which India exports. One is parboiled rice, which means it's partially boiled while still in husk. The other is the Basmati rice, and the other is non-Basmati white rice. There are 3 types of rice mentioned in this article. Now, we need to see these charts individually. Now, moving on to the first chart, which talks about the export of these 3 types of rice which I have mentioned to you. The parboiled rice comes about 78 lakh tons, whereas non-Basmati rice second by 64 lakh tons, and last is Basmati rice by 45 lakh tons. You can see in the last 2 years, the export of non-Basmati rice is greater than the Basmati rice. Okay, that is what the first statement I have written here. The most widely exported rice is parboiled rice, that consists of about 78 lakh tons. Okay, so these are the 3 types, and over 140 countries bought non-Basmati white rice from India in the financial year 23 alone. Okay, 140 countries depend upon this non-Basmati white rice from India. Now, that is all the statistics mentioned in the first chart. Now, moving on to the second chart. See here. These are some of the countries, like some 40 to 50 countries which depend upon the imports of rice from India. You can see on the first line here, it is Nepal, who actually import about 4.57 lakh tons of non-Basmati white rice from India. And you can see here USA, who is in the 34th position, who takes about 27,000 tons of non-basmati white rice from India. You can see other African countries like Madagascar, Benin, Kenya, and also you can see Ivory Coast and other Asian countries like Malaysia and Malaysia coming here, and also we have another Asian country like Vietnam coming here. Our neighbors like Nepal and Bangladesh constitute the majority of people, neighboring countries who buy rice from India, and also we can state like UAE or other countries who are the biggest buyers of this type of non-basmati white rice in India. Told you US is ranked 34%, about 27,000 tons of average import, and Nepal I told you 4.57 lakh tons per year. Also 33 other countries, 33 other countries also depend upon India for their exports in this type of rice. So the ban of India in this rice, this type of particular rice would affect all these countries as a whole. Now to the last, there is something like about the US and other countries who are depending on India. In use here, US is here, which constitutes 20% of the 20% of the rice from India, which accounts to about 2 lakh tons. Okay, US here 20%, about 2 lakh tons is purchased by US. Also you can see this shows all the 3 types of rice here, not just one. US bought 2 lakh tons of such rice and ranks 11th. US ranks 11th. Also the bigger the circle, this is the size of the circle. If bigger the circle, the higher the dependency of country of India for the rice. That is what. This is like smaller, these are bigger. So these countries are more dependent of India than these countries. So that is what the size of the circle in this diagram shows. Also US only 20% from India, the rest 80% comes from other countries like Thailand and all in US. But in the case of Nepal, it depends 99% in India for the rice, as I have told you earlier. Also more than 50% countries, 50% in 23 countries depend upon India, like 8 of them are from sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, so these many countries actually depend upon India. Now moving on to another topic, these are all about the ban of non-basmati rice, in the case how it affects other countries. For India actually, if we are not banning the export of this kind of rice, it would affect domestic prices in India and would rise the inflation on this kind of food grains in India. So it's important that to ensure the domestic supply, it has to be banned. But certain that we could actually give another point of rice and the other countries could actually export the other kind of rices and all, so that they could actually maintain their sufficiency in rice. Now there is an article amid protests in Jammu and Kashmir, government to add more groups to schedule list. Now there was 3 bill introduced by the union government in Lok Sabha regarding Jammu and Kashmir. It is actually to shake up their reservation structure in Jammu and Kashmir for the process of education and employment. Let us read the 3 bills. The first bill is Jammu and Kashmir Scheduled Tribes Order Amendment Bill that was introduced by the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. It seeks to add 4 groups. That is the Pahari, which is an ethnic group in Jammu and Kashmir, and other groups like Gutta Brahmin, Koli and Padaris into Scheduled Tribe list. The first one is to amend the Scheduled Tribe, Jammu and Kashmir Scheduled Tribe Order Amendment List. The other is Jammu and Kashmir Scheduled Caste. We talked about Scheduled Tribe. Then there is Scheduled Caste. This is Scheduled Tribe. And this was started by the Social Justice Ministry, and to add groups like Valmiki as a synonym for Chura, Bangri, Valmiki and Mehatar communities of the Union Territories. Okay. Union Territories, that is what the second bill of the scheduled caste, to add certain communities in the Valmiki as a synonym. And the third is reservation, Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Amendment Bill of 2023. It was started by the Union Minister. Partially it redefined the socially economical backward class and our other backward classes to give effect to a 105th Constitutional Amendment Act. To like the states and center could redefine this socially economically backward class and OBC. So that is what the 3 bills started here. But there are some resistance from the groups of Jammu and Kashmir itself. Let's see. There is opposition from other scheduled tribes like from like Gujjar and Barkral community, because according from the region, the Pirpanchal region, all these three tribes are there. The Pahari is there, the Gujjar is there, and the Bakrwal is there, but only Paharis is given the scheduled tribe status. And also there was protest and changes proposed in the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe list. Some of the scheduled tribe list. These are some of the suggestions or oppositions that comes under the bill. So that is all about the Jammu and Kashmir bill. We would know more about this in the future. Now, West Bengal government announces a mangrove cell. So, West Bengal consists about 40% of the mangrove forest in India. So, yesterday, July 26th was International Day for Conservation of Mangrove Ecosystem. So, on that day, the West Bengal government actually introduced this mangrove cell. So, this mangrove cell contains an action plan for the plantation of mangroves to increase the area in which the mangroves plantation grow. Also, there is a very important central government scheme called the Mishti scheme, Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitation and Tangible Incomes. This Mishti scheme is related to mangroves, is very important, and this has been implemented by the government, mangrove planting along the coastlines and salt pan areas. So, this is all about the West Bengal government's initiative. The thing which you need to know here is that 40% of West Bengal has mangrove forest. They are starting a mangrove cell, and also the government scheme called the Mishti scheme to aid and help in improving the mangrove ecosystem in India. Other 530 district reported as free of manual scavenging. Now you see here, Jammu and Kashmir, only 30% of the districts are free from manual scavenging. Manipur, only 2/16 of the districts are free from manual scavenging, and then Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal and Uttarakhand have the highest number of districts. All these countries have the highest, all these states has the highest number of districts which are yet to declare themselves free from manual scavenging. So, what is manual scavenging? Manual scavenging is the process of people going into the manholes and cleaning of the sewers and such. That is called manual scavenging without the aid from any other instruments or such. They go into the sewers and clean the manholes themselves. Now, 330 people have died during the cleaning of sewers. These people don't get any health benefits or such, they just do it for money. So, because of which exposure of the toxins and without any health benefits, 330 people have already died. Now, there are certain states in which it calls themselves 100% free from manual scavenging, such as Bihar, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu. They have all declared that they are free from manual scavenging, and like Bandicoot robot is actually used in Kerala for manual scavenging, which like prevents humans from manual scavenging. And also UP, which has the highest number of districts under manual scavenging, has now decreased. Now 90% of the districts are manual scavengers free. Now that is it. Then there is Mobile Swachhata app. From this app we can actually locate areas where the sewers are not clean and complain via this app to actually come and clean the municipalities or other people, and other using other instruments to clean the sewers. Also, there is another main scheme by the government regarding the manual scavenging, that is the Namaste scheme, National Action Plan for Mechanized Sanitation Ecosystem. This is a very important act for the abolition of manual scavenging in India. So, these are something which you need to know. Important thing is which you need to know about Mobile Swachhata app and Namaste scheme. Okay, and in this, if you have a mains question related to manual scavenging, you can code these data on which all states now have, which all state doesn't have, what is the status of manual scavenging in India, and also you could mention Bandicoot robot as a measure. Now, this is the last topic for today. India's space industry can reach $100 billion by 2040. So, as per our present growth, we can reach $40 billion by 2040. But the author is saying that if we push a little more, if we actually input with the right strategies, we could actually achieve not 40 but $100 billion within 2040. Also, whatever is happening in the space industry is going through a major transition. Like there is increase in government expenditure in the case of space industries, and there is growing investments of the private space sectors as well. And the government policies increase commercial space venturing experiments and all. So with this, if we actually input, these are all what is happening, right? There is government expenditure, there is private investments happening, and also policies that the government is taking. But with this, we will only reach $40 billion. To make it $100 billion, India government should do a little more. Like, we should provide satellite internet service, leverage the strength in satellites and launch vehicle making. India should come as a hub to create satellites and launch vehicles, and also exploring space tourism sector, which India lags behind. And also green space initiative are some of the initiatives or methods by which India can transform from a $40 to $100 billion space industry by about 2040. Thus, India could emerge as a global powerhouse in the space industry, driving innovation and international collaboration with other countries to develop space industry. So recently I told you about a news where India launched satellites of Singapore. So these are some of the ways by which the space industries could earn. So this is it for today. Thank you and have a nice day. We will meet again tomorrow with more new other topics and all. You can get the PDF of this from our Telegram channel, Gallant IAS Padashala. Thank you.